could change the year, you could change the rule, but another MSI ends with another Xiaohu championship, this time in the mid lane. RNG are your MSI champions. T1, not were overrated, but were overrated, and were proven so here. Although they did kind of speed through Europe, and RNG did speed through NA, and NA did look a little bit better than maybe Europe did in their 3-0. We were comparing 3-0s on Friday and Saturday nights, but that's neither here nor there. You can do that in the comments here on the jungle with myself, Dom, and Monty here. And let's start it off with one of the comments from you all, because we're only 100 viewers away, 100 subs away from passing Astralis. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we do all of the fan interaction right here, right now, right up the top. So here we go. This is from I'm Everywhere. He says, listen up. Vulcan will be the reason EG lose game 4 against RNG from a position where they were able to come back from a 5-cold deficit with a composition that outscales, including Danny on Jinx. That's how smart our fans are, Dom. That's how smart our fans are, Monty. They're calling out exactly what happened in Game 4 against RNG.
Game 4 is very specific. I wonder, like, where that's coming from.
I mean, there's no chance they're getting to Game 4.
There was zero chance they were getting to Game 4 in this series. It took another EG comeback miracle. I mean, EG is so boosted by the fact that objective bounties even exist. It was another game in Game 3 where they're down 10,000 gold. They make, to their credit, they do make a great pick at the Baron, and they do force the issue, right? Get a couple Barons, do give up the Dragon Soul. Then, of course, they get the Elder Dragon. So they make these games long and scrappy, but unfortunately, they're so far down most of the time that they're not actually able to come back fully into it, especially when you give up a Hextech Soul over to RNG. Just a matter of RNG patiently turtling, waiting it out, playing their advantages in the long run. And that's what happens. So EG is like the false hope team. I do credit them, because unlike most NA teams, they don't just roll over and die. They at least fight to the bitter end, which I love about them. But they are just so incredibly boosted by objective. If objective bounties were taken out of this game, EG would be getting giga clapped, guys. You better hope Riot doesn't do anything to objective bounties if you're an EG fan.
What else is giga boosted? And this is for you, Dom.
Okay, sure.
A couple of the comments from our fans last week, because we had a lot of people kind of taking some things out of context, and we just picked a couple of examples, just because there weren't that many. We had to dig a little bit, but we found
upvoted comments that were actually there. These weren't like downvoted, like oh let's go through the weeds to try to like portray a false narrative. Like, no, these were just like probably 3 out of the 5 most upvoted comments on the entire video. So
yeah, let's start with this one right here. The Light says, just a reminder that Dom said Gen G was trash all of last year, and he said they would get destroyed by LNG and Mad Lions. He said T1 was worse than Mad Lions, and that Hanwha Life wouldn't make top 8 at Worlds. Dom knows absolutely nothing about the LCK and the composition of the teams and the players there. So take everything he says about LCK and LCK players with a grain of salt. Everything you said was a lie.
Well, I mean, the thing that's ironic about it is that he literally lies 4 times in one comment, and then he just tries to make it seem like if I did all that stuff, it would be delusional. But actually, I did pick Gen G to advance over LNG. I had LNG not making out of groups. All my stuff is public. You literally go back and look at it now. And the only reason I had Hanwha Life above Fnatic was because I didn't know that Fnatic's fucking roster was going to explode and their AD carry wasn't going to go to the fucking tournament. So it's like, so as soon as I knew that, I obviously corrected.
Dom, how dare you not be a psychic and know that Upset was not going to attend Worlds for a personal crisis?
Yeah, so the Fnatic thing, as soon as I knew the roster that was going, I was like, okay, obviously Hanwha Life makes it out. I had RNG1, Hanwha Life 2. That's literally exactly what happened. And then for the comment about me saying that Gen G was trash all year, I never said Gen G was trash. I said I hate Gen G. I said I hate watching fucking Gen G. I didn't say they were a trash team. I said that they're just uninspiring. They're never going to be a fucking champion. Like, that team is just, they were the most lifeless team available in Worlds of 2020. They felt the same way in 2021 up until they went on that little bit of like a run versus EDG. They had a good series versus EDG, I guess, but I mean, they're just a team that I hated watching because you knew that they were not going to progress past a certain point. So I think it's great when I see comments like this, because I mean, if all that stuff is true, then yeah, it would be really fucking delusional. But then like you actually can just go back and see what the facts are. They're actually just,
you know, they're not going to go
available.
back and check those facts, Tom. That's the thing. Why would do that when they can just spew lies on the internet instead and then seem like they were correct?
Well,
and it gets upvoted.
Well, I mean, this was literally just a bunch of bandwagon T1 fans that saw the title T1 is overrated, and you can tell based off the other comments here that people literally did not even watch the fucking show. They literally were just commenting based off the title, because we didn't say T1 was like dog shit. We didn't say that they
wasn't. I said they were going to win.
Yeah, I thought that they were going to win 3. I thought they were very close to RNG. But
sure, yeah,
you have to understand the context of what overrated was. The rating that people had on them was that not that they were going to like win MSI, they were going to shit on everyone. Like it was not supposed to be even close between T1 RNG, like G2. Like it was just supposed to be T1 shitting on everyone. They're the best team in the history of LCK. People were talking about them being world champions, which still might happen, but in fucking March it's a ridiculous claim. Like at this point they're definitely not in form to be world champions. They
by
can't
the way,
even win
fans,
fucking MSI.
No one's ever won MSI and won Worlds in the same year. That's never happened.
Yeah. I mean, in a calendar year, you know, Kenzu kind of did it, but you know, never in the same year.
Never the same season. Like what I'm saying is like before like, you know, you change the patch, have all the preseason big changes that Riot ever does.
Yep. Yeah. No, so
sorry, RNG.
Cue up the next one, dGon. Let's just knock these
All
down.
right. Yeah. Next one up. You know, I love this because we were talking about some T1 fans. This one, it's a fan of you. Has to be. Prawn with your Krabby Crab
My signature
icon. Your icon that you're now known to use. Dom saying that T1 gameplay isn't that different from domestic. Yikes. Can tell this guy doesn't watch LCK and barely shows up for MSI, as he himself stated. Wow. Another one where he's using and twisting your words a little bit here, Dom.
Okay, so in this one, I like this one especially because they literally just proved that they only have one style this weekend, and they can't even adapt in 5 games to potentially, like, do we take a Lissandra, or do we maybe not take Ari 1-2? They couldn't even adapt in this series to anything else. What did Zeus play? He played Jace. He played it all fucking split, and then here he just plays it again in the matches that matter the most.
We'll get to this. I want to get to your tweet too, Dom, because I think it's true, like what you were saying about Chinese teams being much more aggressive in game 5s. I need to get this off my chest right now. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Dom won in game 5 of Worlds last year. Who carries this team? Oh, that's right. It's Canyon. Let's put him on Trundle. And it's like, has Korea had a fucking great best of 5 series? It's time to put him on Yuumi, right? That's not even remotely how you won these other 2 games. It's like they're like, well, surely this is the most conservative way to play the game, rather than enabling their star players.
Solutions.
They take their star players and then they make them the most passive, reactive players in the game due to their champ selections. Like, it's fucking crazy.
Like they try to just like default their way into a championship. They're like, we're just gonna just make sure nothing happens and we scale, guys. Like, we got a Yuumi on our team, we have a Jace. Just everyone hold your lanes, hold off the onslaught, and then like RNG just come. Yeah, RNG just comes out trying to kill people. They're like, all right, bot lane's dead at level 1, Faker's dead at level fucking 2. Xiaohu's like trading flashes aggressively because he knows that wave's coming, so he gets out the flash right before the gank happens. Like, dude, the mentality difference is so much. But then the hilarious part about this comment is that we've literally discussed LCK in detail on the show. How could I, like, you can go to the other episodes that we have where we've discussed all of playoffs. We discussed games during the season. We discussed all the COVID bullshit that was going on. We were discussing LCK the entire fucking split. So the idea that I just don't watch any LCK and my things are unfounded, it's like, how the fuck could I somehow know what happened in all of the games without watching the fucking games? Like, we've literally talked about it for fucking hours on the show. It's not like it's hidden away in some like, oh, well, Dom, I can't follow all your content, I only watch the jungle. It's like, dude, if you watch this show, it's literally right fucking there. You can click on any of the other episodes. Like, I don't know.
I forget how much time we did put into it. As much as, again, I won't claim I'm the expert, but I had to watch that shit too to remember that, like, like took over the game for Freddy Brian and like, you know, had himself like made playoffs. Like that was all great moments, but we've definitely put in the time to at least watch it. And these two guys definitely can ingest much faster than anyone else, especially in our comment section. And our last one here.
And
because
by the way,
yeah.
by the way, guys, this is the only show in League of Legends that actually covers all of the big games that happen around the world every single week. Like we coordinate on this shit and we say, okay, these are the big games coming up. We all need to make sure if, you know, for example, if there's an upset or something, we also message each other and are like, hey, check out this game or whatever, so we can talk about it. This is the only fucking show in League of Legends that does that. The only one, guys. The only one.
Yeah. But apparently we don't do it well enough.
No, I don't. You guys do. I'm the one that doesn't, because
Yeah,
I have the LPL bias, so I'm the one that doesn't actually do my fucking job.
The last one, it got upvoted a little bit on our own video here. It was, do you think T1's overrated? Right, nice and easy. It's a safe question. It seems like a straight up answer, but Phil Pendo wants to make it complicated. Ask again next week. What like?
Hey, can you ask me? Can you ask me, dGon?
El Dominico, do you think that
Yes.
T1 are overrated?
Yes, they're fucking overrated. Yes, they were overrated. They're
By the way,
fucking overrated.
Is it? Let me ask a different question, because the overrated thing, because obviously Thorin tweeted recently about Fallen being overrated in Counter-Strike, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
then everybody got giga mad, and it doesn't mean you're a bad player, guys. Like I don't understand. Is Gen Z, are they just so dumb that they can't understand the difference between overrated and underrated? Because let me explain it to you. You can be the best team or player in the world and still be overrated. You can be the worst player or team in the world and be underrated. These things are possible. It's not saying that T1 can't win the tournament. It's not saying that they can't win worlds. It's just saying that the ridiculous amount of hype, ignoring all of the flaws with this team that we have amply pointed out on this show. You know, they were barely winning a lot of the best of threes that they did win. Their main opponent, Gen G, was like crippled by COVID, like had substitutes. You know,
Elder,
they were flipping at Baron in the finals. Like, these are very clear flaws.
Both the Domwon series were fucking close. Like, come on, guys, come on. Like, they did not fucking piss in everyone's face. Like, they actually played games that were close, and they won off flips in games. They had a really good early game. That's why they should have won the tournament.
Correct.
As this tournament progressed, and also they have a really good matchup into RNG stylistically. From watching this tournament, I wonder how they're gonna fucking play into TES. How would they play into TES? Because TES shit on RNG early game. Every fucking game, they're all up in RNG. Every single early game, and RNG had to come back.
I do think, though, that if we're honest about RNG at the same time, the difference between them and MSI and LPL playoffs is like Wei had a bad LPL playoffs. He played significantly better, looked a lot more comfortable in this. So I don't think it's fair to pretend that RNG was having the same form in the early game that they had in LPL playoffs as they did in this tournament, because they did just play better independently of their opponent.
I don't think so. I actually disagree with that. I think that LPL teams are just way fucking better early game, and like
I think that is true. That is true. But
I just think that, like, when I go back to these games, right, I'm thinking about the games that we just saw, right, where you have been inting, just running it down, and like that their whole early game, that reminded me so much of what RNG did in LPL playoffs, where Wei is never around bot. Bot is just like winning on its own. Wei is just going top. Somehow they're losing out on the top situations, even though Wei is investing his time. I mean, we saw Zeus,
he was investing his time walking into the enemy tower and dying at times. He wasn't helping actively.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was always inting. But my point is that, like, I actually think that top esports now, to me, appears like one of the best early game teams in the world when they are super coordinated and they play the champions for it. So watching this series, I mean, it just made me think, like, it was T1's early game actually that insane? Because I'm watching T1's early game, and like, it was pretty fucking bad the entire time. And it's not just in terms of, oh, there's 35 pings, so they have worse mechanics. Like, if you watch the games, they're losing 5v4s on Herald versus RNG. RNG is taking a straight up 5v4 on Herald.
That was terrible. That was really embarrassing.
This is supposed to be RNG's biggest weakness. RNG would lose every Herald fight no matter what.
I mean, in that game, it was wild, because it was not only losing the 5v4, Dom, it was that that was the game. No, it wasn't the game where they had the support ult at 6 faster. But it was because Faker just also didn't rotate over to the Herald at the start of the fight.
Because T1 is... Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're gonna say, but the
Yeah.
problem is that T1 just expects teams to give that. They're like, oh, they're 80
Yep.
carries bottom, our 80 carries here. It's a 5v4. Of course they're not gonna contest.
Yep.
I mean, that's just what it is. And you look at the angle that they took by RNG. I thought that was a really fucking insane contest. If you don't know what we're talking about, game 3 Herald fight. This is the one where they have a Braum. What'd you say? 850.
850.
Yeah, 850. And Jiaohu actually is playing Lissandra. They drop a pink ward in the pit, and instead of Eing into the enemy team so they can see where the claw is, he E's into the pit that is pinked so that no one can see it, and then he just flashes over, ults the jungler, and they just one-shot the Wukong. Viego gets a reset, tears up the whole fight. Win a 4v5 hard. Like, I think it was, at the end of it, maybe it was 2 for 4 or something, and then Gala's just getting plates at the same time as well. So
it was embarrassing too, because Zeus actually got a very good Kennen ult off in that fight, but there was no follow-up because Faker comes to the fight late. Then he's chasing Bin around, and he doesn't have any mana, so he actually can't kill Bin quickly.
Well, he missed everything. That's why he had no mana. He missed his
So he he also had to use two ult charges. I'm remembering this off the top of my head. 2 ult charges to even get into the fight, and then by the time he reaches Bin has no HP, but Faker has no mana, and so he's just like autoing him slowly to death, and then there is no cleanup. So the whole thing was just awfully played by T1.
Yeah, and it was a good exhaust. I mean, it was really well coordinated by RNG though. I mean, those are the types of fights where that's like why I like the LPL, because even though that you can look at it and be like, strategically they should never fight this, so actually T1's the better team. Even though they lost, T1's the better team because they made the more logical decision. It's like the idea that they know what the conditions are. Like, Wei is obviously really fucking big at that point, and they understand the condition is you have to one-shot the jungler there. So they invest so much to get that initial reset for Wei so he can carry the fight. And even though the Ezreal ult didn't hit, you could see the coordination, right? Like, there's the pink ward, the E onto the pink ward. They know to one-shot the jungler. They time the engage right with when the Ezreal ult is flying across, just in case that is like needed to do damage, or just in case it hits the Wukong or something. Maybe they can save like Lissandra ult and they can just one-shot him cleanly off that. I just think that that's the type of stuff that is really cool about League of Legends. Like, when you make a play that the enemy team isn't expecting, and the fact that you are so, like, you've prepped it going in, you're mentally like prepared for what you're about to do, gives you such an advantage. Like, those are the moments where I'm like, damn, this is like good League of Legends, you know? Because most teams would never fight that, right? Most teams look at that and they're like, it's a 4v5. T1's the best Herald team in the world. It's a 4v5. Why are we fighting? We're getting free plates bot. That's supposed to be the trade. Our AD carries getting solo experience, free plates bot. What most teams would do would try to make the enemy team sweat for Herald. That's normally the idea. It's like, we're going to try to really just harass them here and make sure they can't get the Herald cleanly. And at the same time, Gala is going to be huge. And even though you might end up getting more gold if you crash the Herald top or something, and we go in a straight turret trade, even though you might generate more gold or get first turret, the fact that it's going to be shared gold and shared experience compared to like the solo gold and solo experience on our AD carry, like, that's going to be the deciding factor. That's why teams opt into that trade. So I don't know, man. Like even though this was a 3-2, I felt like RNG looked like the considerably better team in this series. Like, even the games that T1 won, I thought were much closer than the games that RNG won. Like, think about game 2. Faker has to do this like insane Lissandra, like 5-man WR while they're on Baron to save the whole fucking game. Game 4, they could have potentially won the dragon fight. They get the pick, they walk forward, die at the same time, and then suddenly like the whole fight ends. Like, it wasn't like T1 played close to as well as RNG on the day, but like, despite the fact that the score line was 3-2. Like, not every 5-game series is automatically close just because they played 5 games.
I mean, I guess I could disagree about game 2, because I think that it was an extremely dangerous Baron call for RNG, and I don't think Faker has to hit everybody in order for that to work, because the Jinx resets were definitely going to come through when RNG was so low in that pit regardless, I think. And Faker didn't have to hit absolutely everyone for them to roll up and clean up that fight. I think it was a bit of a desperation in a losing situation for RNG, and the existence of the Jinx made that very difficult. But I do think that, at least in this matchup, you saw a lot of the limitations of T1 that we have been discussing in terms of the style of team compositions that they are capable of using. And they were really reluctant and almost arrogant. And, you know, to Dom's point, he likes seeing how teams problem solve in difficult situations around team fighting. I like seeing macro play and, intelligent, cross map play. And so for me, what I saw in game 1 from T1 was a really well executed early game that prioritized taking plates and like applying pressure very deliberately away from the enemy jungler and away from the enemy map play onto those plates. But I was very down on their ability to execute that composition, because playing these long range poke compositions in the mid and late game requires virtually no errors and really just a dedication to objective control and proper vision control and the kind of fortitude to just stand your ground, get the poke down before you engage these team fights, make sure that your flanks are protected. And only very disciplined mid and late game teams can accomplish these goals. And so even though they played this really nice macro, I think in the early game that was entirely based around maximizing plate gold and getting the first turrets down, the first ring of turrets down, they played those fights very badly. They got themselves into a dragon hole where they basically, a hole in terms of being behind in dragons, where they had to fight, and then they allowed a flank that never should have occurred within these late games. And so to me, that's the big flaw with T1, is that they don't seem to understand their own limits.
Exists. That they don't know that dragon exists. That's the biggest.
No, they know it exists. They were there.
They never do it. They never do dragons. Period. They're always in a 2-dragon hole.
No. I don't. Come on. I don't. You are correct, but I don't disagree with that in theory. If you are capable of executing those fights properly. But the problem is they ignore dragon and then suck at making sure the enemy doesn't get the 3rd and 4th dragon. So that's the problem, is it's like they appear to be so unaware of their own limitations, and they think that because they play so well around these early games that it is going to translate into a snowball, into something that they can snowball, when they are incapable of doing that. And their early games are still strong when they play more team fight compositions. Like the nerfed Jinx is dangerous to play in lane. But it worked here because Gumayusi and Korea did get out of lanes with the Jinx and Tahm Kench combo. And once they're out of lane, you really see how good Korea is at Tahm Kench. I talked about this all season so far, which is that Korea, he is the star because Gumayusi will overextend. And it's champions like Thresh and Tahm Kench that allow Korea to manipulate team fights and basically he's an eraser. I said this earlier. He's an eraser for the mistakes that his team makes in terms of positioning. And he is very, very good at that. So once he escapes, you see the playmaking potential of this champion and you see how T1 is very good with these team fight compositions. So my question is, why take the risk of having these winning lane, but very fragile compositions that really take a lot of discipline to pilot well in the mid and late game if you are capable of surviving the laning phase with things that you are more comfortable playing in that same phase of the game?
I don't even think that their laning was like, so I think Zeus's laning was good. I think that mid and bot were generally getting outplayed throughout most of the games. Like even in game 2, for example, where Zhao's on the Ahri and his team is losing, Lissandra still looks good. It looks like Zhao is really managing cooldowns well. He is playing a lot of he was, instead of having to cleanse Lissandra ult, he was able to see the animation cast of Lissandra ult and R1 away from it so he didn't have to burn his cleanse. And then you'd see Owner come in and try to flash on him and he would instantly R2 before the CC would land. So he would actually get so much value out of his Ahri compared to when Faker was on the Ahri side, where it just didn't look like it was good at all, right? And then bot lane was just bad pretty much the entire game 1, I guess they did fine, but it's Caitlyn Morg lane, Gala got a kill level 1. That lane sounds fucking impossible, by the way. If you told me hey man, you're gonna have to try to play this lane, you're gonna be playing Tristana into Caitlyn Morgana, I would rage quit the game if my coach tried to tell me to go lane that shit. That should be impossible. You are losing turret plates the entire time, and it probably would have been if it wasn't for that level 1 death. But when you look at these games, it's Gumayusi and Keria, they looked really fucking sus in lane the entire tournament. And you can't even say, oh, but it's all Gumayushi's fault. Game 5, what the fuck is going
Yeah,
on?
what was he
Keria is
doing?
unattached, just walking up, just
Against
like, what
the
do you think they're gonna
Rakan.
do?
That's
Yeah,
bad.
that was like, it wasn't even one of those where like he was like mid-attach and like the Rakan canceled him out of it. It was like, oh, he was trying to outplay. It was just, he was just standing there and just got W'd level 1. The games where they like outperformed bot lane was when Gala like randomly inted on Xayah, like flashing into the turret. Like he's flashing into the turret trying to kill Gumayushi and he dies. Bro, I don't want to hear people telling me that Gumayushi is as good of an AD carry as Gala anymore. Please. Please. We watched a whole tournament of him int. Like he was inting versus the fucking Buffalo, bro. Like he's inting versus the Buffalo. He's not as good as Gala. Like, it's just not. No,
Well,
no, sir.
now's
Gala's a
the
Kai'Sa
time.
one trick. He didn't get Kai'Sa one time in this final, dude. What? Like,
Look,
what do you? I don't
Look,
understand.
I think you are overstating a bit because I think in some of the more difficult lanes, like Gumayushi didn't die on Jinx in either of the games that he played, and Korea died one time in the team on Tom Kench in these games. Like I think they
he's not
do.
gonna die. He has a Tom Kench. Like,
Of course,
like,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's how they play, Dom. That's how they've been playing all year. Like,
I mean, they were able to play more aggressively than this. And they're not only playing like these weak, like we're gonna like fucking hide under
win.
a turret and hope that we're not gonna get railed by the enemy bot lane. Like they didn't have to do that.
I just think that these are the team compositions that they've had success on, and they went back to that in this final. You know, people were telling me, "Oh yeah, they can definitely play all of these other different styles of composition." Like they went back to resets. They went back to the Jinx, guys. They went back to the Jace because that is the comfort pick for Zeus. And there are so many fucking wacky narratives about Zeus that have been going on. First off, people saying he's a rookie. What are you even talking about? He's not a rookie. He played in spring of 2021. He's literally not a rookie.
I did not. I have not seen that one. I missed
that's been a common refrain that this guy is a rookie, right? He is amazing mechanically at times. Like he's certainly a bright up and coming player, but he was put on the academy roster for summer of 2021, and then when Kana left the team, he came back as the full-time starter for this year. So Zeus is a player that had experience in LCK last year in spring, so he is definitively not a rookie.
Not a rookie.
and then number two, like let's just talk about his champion pool. He's not a super experienced player. He's played less than 100 games. He's played 93 games of League of Legends in his career, right? And that's not a lot. It's a lot for an LCS player because they only play fucking 18 games a split and then maybe 18 games in the playoffs if they're lucky. But that's not a lot when you're playing 2 best of 3s a week, right? And then on top of that, his champion pool, 73 of those 93 games are only on 7 champions. Jace, Gwen, Gnar, Gragas, Kennen, and Renekton. He never played Gangplank until MSI. He has never played a game of Ornn ever professionally. And I think picking Ornn would have probably been very smart. Banning Gwen and picking Ornn would probably have been very smart for T1 in this series. Yeah. But he's never played it. So
yeah, I get what they mean. Like he never got a full split before. You know, like he played.
He was sharing with Kana. He was sharing time with Kana in spring.
So this is like his first like. You are the starter. Like you're getting all the games. Like this is his first like real go at being a tier 1 like pro, and he's obviously the youngest player on the team. I thought he was the best player on the team.
No, I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying like there are just lies going on about him being a rookie, and then also on top of that, there isn't a lot of reason to believe that he is an incredibly versatile player at this point in his career.
So the reason, so I don't think that this is actually true, but I know why the community thinks this. So generally, the champions that he plays are considered like the more difficult champions in League of Legends to play. So everyone always mentally does the thing where they're like, well, bro, if you can play Jace, you can play Ornn. Like all the bad top laners can play Ornn. Like none of the bad top laners can play Jace, right? So they think that like if you can play the more difficult champions, and it happens in all roles, right? Like it happens in jungle. If somebody's a really good Lee Sin player, and there becomes like a Sejuani meta or something, people are like, okay, well, I mean, he plays Lee Sin. You think he's not going to have the mechanics to play Sejuani? Obviously, jungle is like a little bit more like brain oriented, but it's just the type of thinking that goes on in the community. I mean, because he plays difficult champions and he understands like the finer dynamics of the lane, he should theoretically be able to play these like easier champions.
Yeah, I get it, but at the same time, his Jace accounted for 15 games in the regular spring split, and the next one was Gnar at 6, right? He got Jace in almost, in the vast majority of his games, or like that was clearly his preferred pick, right?
Yes.
And he got it because it was never banned, because there were either power picks that were being banned, or teams were trying to ban out other players on T1. So he was basically in a position of comfort throughout most of his career. Over a quarter of his professional games are on Jace, guys. Like, he constantly gets this pick, and he does well with it. And he did well. He did well in one game with it here in lane.
Well, he didn't get the chance. Like, I think both of his Jace games were fine. The game 5, he like doesn't even get to play the game because
right.
of.
I mean, because his other lanes inted, and then yes, sure.
And Yahoo's just up in his lane level 4. So
yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it's not. And again, this is not to say that Zeus is a bad player. I think Zeus is a very good player, but we have to be honest about where at the point he's at in his career. And if we're honest, he is neither a rookie, that is a lie. And then also, he's not a super veteran player yet. He's very young. He doesn't have a lot of experience on a variety of champions. And indeed, he was busting out picks that he's never played before at MSI itself. So I think you just have to reevaluate and say, has he been overrated as a player? I would say certainly he has. And I think an inability to play Ornn really hurt T1 in this series. Like, I think whether that was an ego move or, I think it is reasonable.
On red side. You can't play Ornn on red side. Apparently.
Right. That was something I wanted to get into.
I mean, like, even in the EG game, EG was banning Gwen and playing Ornn. And if you want to see the power of Ornn, just watch that EG game 3 and see how they're 10k gold behind. And Impact's Ornn is one of the main reasons they're able to get back into that game. It is a strong champion, but it did feel like at times that T1 was trying to ego win in this matchup. And in the first game of the series, I was like, wow, I think this composition is very risky. Like, you can win with it, but I don't think that T1 is the team that will win with it. And I think it's hard to execute, and I wouldn't have done this. And at the end of game 1, I was thinking to myself, well, is this what is this their only strategy that they have? Or are they going to kind of go back to comfort or go back to team fighting? They went back to more of the team fighting play, and I think they saw more success with that. But they didn't have enough versions of that composition in order to play this out. And there were several ego moves that I saw. I think playing the Jace was an ego move after the nerf. I think playing the Jinx had the potential to backfire on them, although it did not, but it was a comfort pick for them that did get them the 2 wins that they had in this series. And then I think also the insistence on prioritizing Ahri when Xiaohu was very good on the Lissandra counter pick, and indeed Faker was also pretty good on the Lissandra counter pick. And by the way, guys, Lissandra had a 100% win rate into Ahri in this tournament.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Wait, but so one thing that I saw from Rigby, who's the coach of EG, that I thought was a really good point that I didn't see anyone else making, was that blue side, he thinks that blue side should actually be worse as the series progressed because of the fact that Lissandra was such a good counterpick to Ahri. So what he was suggesting is every team is R1, R2ing Ahri. But if you think Lissandra's a counterpick to Ahri, why don't you pick other things, R1, R2, support, jungle? I mean, you probably still keep the jungle pick. Pick anything else, right? If they take Ahri B2, B3, then you answer with Lissandra on R3.
Yes.
If they give you Ahri, then you get Ahri, you ban out Lissandra. If they blind Lissandra, then you just take like Victor or some shit, or you just like, so you can actually get into an advantaged mid lane situation in draft if you actually believe in the Lissandra versus Ahri counter. It feels like Lissandra versus Ahri is a thing where like people thought it was a soft counter, and it ended up actually being a hard counter over the course of like
in this tournament.
Here's the other thing, Dom. Think about it this way too. Okay, Jinx base HP is nerfed. She's a lot weaker in the early game. You have spent 2 games getting out of lane without dying on Jinx. So you assume like, okay, well, we can play more passively, or we've taken this risk and it's come off very well for us. They are first picking a Gwen that you haven't banned. So you can actually just straight up guarantee solo lane counter picks for yourself on red side. You guarantee them. Like you get to choose the matchups effectively if you want to. If you want to save your mid lane pick for the very last pick of the draft, that is technically an option for you.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that in general, T1 didn't adapt at all throughout the series. Like, I thought at some point, like, what the fuck was the Nautilus ban game 5? Game 5, you're banning Nautilus over Gwen. Like, how good do you think Ming's Nautilus is? Like, I think Ming's a great Nautilus, but like, I've never seen a Nautilus that's as scary as a fucking Gwen. You know, like that. I don't know about that. And then the other thing is like Lucian is banned the entire series. I mean, surely in 5 games you can drop at least one of these bans and see, you know, or
Yep.
you give over the Galio. You leave
Yeah,
up
also the
Galio
Galio
and
bans
Lucian.
were the Galio bans were super weird because even in game 1, they didn't lose because of Galio. T1 lost because they let Galio
Yeah.
and Gwen fuck them in situations that they shouldn't. Realistically, guys, that Galio should not have been able to do anything against a very well executed version of T1's composition. It was their own mistakes that caused the Galio to work, like grouping up in the Baron pit.
I can understand them not wanting to lose 2 games to Galio though, because like Xiaohu is literally undefeated on Galio this year, and he's like just absurdly good at the champion. So I can understand that, but like the whole idea is that, so you've already shown that you prepped a Galio counter, right? In the G2 series, you picked Tristana into Galio.
Tristana.
So
I was wondering where that went too, by the way. That was really weird.
So you prepped one Galio counter. You know what the hardest Galio counter is supposed to be? It's supposed to be Lucian. Like, Lucian has been historically a really, really bad matchup for Galio. Like, Galio is just supposed to get completely fisted in that matchup. So why don't you leave up both Galio and Lucian? Like you have options, and if like they first pick Lucian or something, then you get the Gwen. Like there's options that are available to you in this draft, because you see like you see what they're banning. They have to ban first. They're blue side. So I don't know. For me, when I'm seeing this draft, like I don't buy that blue side is 100% OP. Like I don't think either of these teams adapted well to being on red side draft wise. And I think that, yeah, if you run the same game back 5 times in a row, then yes, like then fucking blue side looks really OP. But I didn't see enough adaptations where I'm convinced that because red side is all about counter picks, right? Like that is supposed to be the advantage to red side. Blue side gets to pick like the OP champions, the first champion, and then you get the responses. Are there really no responses to the fucking champions that are being picked? I just don't believe it. I didn't see enough. Maybe it's true. I have not seen close to enough verifiable evidence that champs like Gwen have 0 counters, champs like Galio have 0 counters, like Lucian has 0 counters. I just don't think that is accurate.
Right, and the reason for fans that don't that aren't up to date on kind of like why this is sparking a lot of debate, Polt, in an interview, head coach of T1, in an interview with Invent Global, said, he was asked like, hey, where would you place the blame on this game, like percentage wise? And he said, it's hard to put any points on it because my team played well. We just didn't get to play blue side 3 times. And to, again, one of those situations.
That's like one of the most cringe things I've ever seen. Holy
like
moly.
One of those situations where you boil down a lot into one comment, but here, let me read it verbatim. I can't really put a number on the players and coaches' performance today. All I can say is that everyone did so well. The reason we lost was, as I just said, because we weren't able to play on the blue side 3 times. We've now just gone through multiple different iterations of how the draft could have gone differently on the side that we think could have even been stronger in terms of the red side and the counter picks. So that is why there's been a lot of conversation around it by pundits and armchair analysts and
okay, well,
our viewers.
let's just talk about Polt for a second. No disrespect to Polt, by the way. I fucking love Polt. Polt is a seminal figure in esports history. He is incredibly intelligent. But again, if we're being honest about Polt, he is very limited in his knowledge of League of Legends because he hasn't been around the game that long, guys. He was a professional StarCraft 2 player for many years. He then became a professional TFT player, and it's only relatively recently that he has gotten into League of Legends. So
last 2 years?
2 years.
Yep. Year and a half, maybe?
Yeah, year and a half, realistically, I think. But I think Polt is really smart, and he is known for how fast he picks up games and his in-game creativity. But he should not
see none of that with this team. I literally see no.
Well, that's because Faker is actually the coach of this team. That's the reality of it. Like Polt is, I'm sure, an excellent manager for this roster, and I'm sure he provides value. But at the end of the day, when the coaching purge happened last year, Faker became the de facto coach of this team, in effect. And certainly you would say that Polt does not have the years of experience and game knowledge that a player like Faker does, right? He just hasn't been around long enough. So, you know, I would take what Polt says at this point with a grain of salt. I want to go back to the Gumayushi thing though too.
Hold on, let me flame Polt. Now that you hyped him up, I need to say my. So I didn't know Polt from StarCraft. I didn't follow StarCraft. These are some of the first things that I've seen Polt say. I've seen nothing to show me in League of Legends that he's some genius and when it comes to like the strategic elements of the game. And I think that it's inexcusable for a coach to win a tournament and say shit like this. I think it's like so fucking disrespectful to the other team. I think it's like a way to kind of like weaponize your mentally ill fan base to like try to get them whipped up into fright. It's like, oh, riots against us. Like the amount of times that I'm seeing just like people on Twitter just go absolutely fucking crazy about like, oh, well, it's just rigged. China's just cheating. Like you're just like fitting into this narrative. Number one, if there wasn't a coin flip, you would have not had blue side because you came in second in the Rumble stage. That's number one. Like you have no argument that you should be blue side more often here. You almost lucked your way into blue side. You could say, oh, but last year RNG won the coin toss. I don't think tosses should exist. Number two, I don't think that you drafted optimally. Like I think that these were some of the worst. I think game 5 was like the worst draft that they had the entire tournament. Like I think that that's almost impossible to fucking win versus a team like RNG with how both teams were playing on the day. Like you're literally just going to give RNG all the aggressive tools and be like, we're just going to withstand it, guys. We're just going to Yumi it out. Yumi Jin. Like that is, I hate that draft strategy anyway. But yeah, I think that but in general, it's a disgusting thing to say.
Here's the thing, Dom. I mean, these are the problems that I have been repeatedly bringing up about T1 is that they have this year had very limited compositions that they have used and very limited champion pools. And they were really good at executing these compositions, but the meta changed right before MSI. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, their champions that they really relied on were nerfed, or other champions that, things like Kai'Sa and Ezreal that became very high priority picks for good players at this tournament that Gala excels on, were doing much better. I mean, here's the thing about Gumayushi, guys.
That sounds like things they could improve on. It doesn't sound like blue side won
exactly. No, I agree with you 100%. But I mean, this is to show T1 fans what some of these limitations are. So similarly to Zeus, who was splitting time last year, you have to remember that Teddy was the survivor of the 10-man roster purge. And I promise you, if Teddy was on this roster, Gumayushi would have been benched at this tournament. I think it was actually very bad that T1 didn't have a backup to Teddy because of Gumayushi's kind of poor individual performance throughout this event, and also because of the fact that the champion pool shifted back into a direction that Teddy was more comfortable with. And if we're being honest about Gumayushi, he still has fewer than 150 professional games played, just like Zeus has under 100. Gumayushi has double-digit games on only 4 champions. Those 4 champions are Aphelios, Jinx, Jhin, and Ezreal, okay? 2 of those champions, Jhin and Ezreal, he only has a 54% win rate on both of those champions, despite having almost a 70% professional win rate. His Kai'Sa, he has a 37% win rate on, which is basically half of his overall win rate. So these are not picks that he is comfortable on. He has been very reliant on Aphelios and Jinx throughout his career. And yes, his Caitlyn was good, but his Caitlyn was banned for most of the spring split because Caitlyn was considered really, really strong at that time. Yeah, Caitlyn is no longer considered as strong. So this is a player, again, like Zeus, who has had a very limited professional champion pool, and those expectations about how you play champions within compositions changes. And it's not a problem. Again, Gumayushi, like Zeus, is a very young player. T1 is still one of the very best teams in the world, right? But we just have to objectively analyze where these players' strengths lie. And Gumayushi did look uncomfortable throughout this tournament, and having Kai'Sa become so high priority when he is not good on that champion is a problem.
Sure. I just think the whole aura of T1, like it's so weird. I mean, I really like Faker. I mean, Faker is the fucking GOAT. I just think everything surrounding him is so off-putting. Like the fan base, what the fuck? Like Polt said this, I was like, man, like, can you imagine Kenju saying this? Like, dude, imagine what would happen. People are even citing against Polt on like Western social media, it's crazy. Like it's been T1 favored the entire time. This is so crazy that even the general fan base is like, I think that's a little bit too far. You should probably give the team that beat you like pretty badly in the 3 games they won, like some amount of credit. Like there's that. then you just look at social media. Like, I can't stand Joe Marsh. Like, I don't know where this guy developed such a fucking insane ego, but he's just like talking like he made Korean League of Legends when he's just like some dude from the US who probably knows less than a tenth about League of Legends and like creating rosters than the other people that exist within this space for years and dedicated their life to it. And he just egos on everyone, egoing on
by the way,
multiples, egos on everyone from North America. Like, he's like
somehow Joe Marsh hired those coaches and instituted the 10-man roster that they had to disassemble and then make Faker the de facto head coach of the roster. So basically, they have had to take apart the plan that he wanted to make, and then take the thing, Faker, that existed before he got there and put him in charge of the team.
I just think that it's like I'm a fucking North American player, and he, like, when I hear Joe Marsh talk down on all of North American League of Legends, like, yeah, how many world championships do you guys have? It's like, dude, what do you like?
How many do you have, Joe Marsh?
Exactly.
0. Exactly. You have 0.
Then you look at everything about this organization, right? T1 social media. They tweet out that they lose. RNG social media tweets, it was a great series. You guys have the undisputed GOAT on your team. Like, can't wait to see you in Worlds. Just like try to send a nice message out. Just be cordial. T1 doesn't respond. Their social media doesn't respond at all. They just stonewall. It's just like the whole aura. It's like, God, it just pisses me off. It's like, why do they have such an elitism like amongst them? It's so hard to deal with. Then, like, obviously T1 fans, like, it is not comparable. Like, I shit on TSM fans. When I say negative stuff about T1, the amount of like actual mental, like, death threats, like people like actually telling me that they were going to come and kill, it is like way worse with T1. So like the whole idea that, I mean, we literally, they post public death threats. When I had the situation with Thorin where they misquoted me, they put it on DC Inside, they said that I said things that I didn't say. People were tweeting death threats at me publicly, like not even DMs. Like, they're just like, yeah, bro, like fuck you because you're Hispanic, like all this. I'm like, dude, that's just my last name. Like, I'm like pretty whitewashed, you know, like I'm half white, half Hispanic, but like I don't speak Spanish. Like, I'm pretty much white, dude. Like, they're just trying to get every little thing. Like, I don't understand like how this is just like how everyone's just like, yeah, you know, I mean, they're just passionate, dude. They're just like, why does T1 always get a pass? Their coach can be a sore loser. Like, their CEO can flame everyone under the sun, can flame entire regions when he's
they
an American
they can literally do a cover-up job for homophobia that everybody's just like cool with, I guess.
I mean, just like I just watch everything. Here's something: when you watched the opening video that they showed, didn't it look like T1 was the heroes and RNG were just the enemies? The way that the whole thing was shot.
Yeah.
Like T1 is like walking in, and then like you have like Zhao who's literally playing like the virus, like Zhao who like hacks like the fucking monitor, and he's like, we knew that we would face you, like, get ready to like meet your match. And then like Faker's like, we will defeat you, and everyone's cheering, yeah, Faker, yeah. Like, it literally, it's just like they're the protagonists.
I'm not so mad at that because look, Faker is an immense fan draw for literally everybody on the planet, and it is taking place in Korea in front of a Korean audience. So like, I'm less mad about that because like,
I mean, it's supposed to be a world event, but yeah.
Well, I mean, RNG is also supposed to be at the tournament, you know.
Sure.
So
sure.
we got a lot of problems.
What a mess! I wonder how that happened.
I mean, they just love Asian games more important than MSI, dude. That's
just
it. So.
Look at our fucking comment section.
It's crazy that they could get the trophy into their house and get these backdrops into their house, but they can't get RNG out of the house. Really weird.
Well, no, they already had the trophy in the house because they just like win MSI every year, so they just like literally you just reuse their old trophy.
Oh, did they reuse the old trophy? All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
that's actually funny.
They just reuse the old trophy because it's like, oh, well, like just get last year's, or you can get the one from 2018. I don't give a fuck which ones you get. Like,
by the way, I did kind of want RNG to win, specifically because I was curious about what would happen on stage, and it was objectively hilarious to have the confetti spraying all over like an empty desk, and then T1 just like getting covered in confetti after they lost. And then did you notice the trophy just like disappeared from the stage too? Yeah. I was laughing quite a bit. I was like, wow, this is horrible.
The best part about T1 is the players. Like, the players are the people that I like on T1.
Of course.
But it's just everything surrounding T1 is just stuff. Like, all the players have personality. I enjoy watching the players play League. I just don't enjoy everything else that comes with it.
No, and look, here's the thing. Before the Comcast, you know, SKT Comcast merger, there wasn't a problem with the org, right? What's so loathsome has been the Comcast influence on this team and the way that they have decided to present themselves, and the fact that they look. Here's just another factor of all of this, okay? Which is that this team, they don't even understand the T1 brand. Like, this is the most prestigious organization in the entire history of esports. This is the shining jewel of esports teams, and it has been for decades now, okay? Now, what does this team stand for? Excellence, fair play, okay? Do Korean fans like match fixers? No. Match fixing is horribly, horribly looked down upon in Korea because it nearly destroyed Brood War Esports. And there's a history of really, frankly, loathsome behavior by Korean players who have gone to prison for match fixing.
Which is why Kespa is so like hard on all the rules about like, you know, doing remote play and everything, because they've experienced that in other esports.
Well, also Kespa is evil. Let's get that out there. Like,
okay.
they suck.
Right, you're gonna
a
go
lot.
there, okay?
Where are we going with this, Monty? I'm excited for this journey. You're taking me on a journey.
I'm taking you on a
ready.
journey of T1's brand, okay, and how to present that brand when it has certain values because it is a Korean brand. All right, so T1 then proceeds to expand into Valorant, and they do it with the North American roster. Who's the first player they get? Oh, right, it's Brax, the dude banned from Counter-Strike for match fixing. And they're like, this aligns with our brand values. And for the record, guys, I do not think Brax should be banned. I think that is bullshit from Valve. And I think throwing a game for some skins like years and years ago is stupid. He should have gotten a year or two ban, and that was it. So I'm not saying that Brax should have received the punishment that he did, or that even what he did I think was that bad. My point is, if you understand your brand, you cannot hire Brax as the first guy for your Valorant team, because that is not the brand that you bought. Like, and how are Korean fans not fucking outraged by this? Like, I don't get it. I guess they just don't give a shit about the NA Valorant team. I mean, the Koreans don't give a shit about Valorant. Like, let's be real. They probably don't even know. But you cannot do these things with this particular brand. And it just doesn't seem like there is somebody at this org who understands what the brand is. I mean, it's what the history of this brand is, and how to properly run it in a way that is consistent with the excellence that this team has had over the years. And that's sad. To me, as a fan, as somebody who has watched this team since Brood War, that is disappointing.
All I'm saying is like, just think about the reaction that we got from literally look at the last comment section and how it's 450 comments deep. Just lies, just hate. We predicted T1 to win. We said they are overrated. Like they're rated too highly. They're not going to shit on RNG, essentially is the claim. They will not shit on RNG. It will be a close series. That got met with so much negativity. Think about this. We were being delusionally positive to T1. We were rating them too highly, actually. Like, we should have been more negative about their flaws. Like, if we were trying to be closer to the truth.
Dude, coming at Dom as like an LPL aficionado is one thing, but you guys are coming at me. Okay? I lived in Korea for 5 years. Koreans called me Kim Monte. They gave me a Korean last name. They called me the blue-eyed Korean. Everyone else in the world called me a Korean dick sucker. I call myself a Korean fellatio enthusiast.
Korean fellatio enthusiast, please.
Yeah. That's what I call myself.
We're trying to not get this banned.
Korean fellatio enthusiast. That's what I call myself. But you guys, if you're coming at me and for takes about honest takes about Korean esports, I don't even know, who do you think your biggest ally is, you dumb motherfuckers?
Well, I mean, it's also like the knowledge, like, what were Dom says whatever he wants because he's trying to win over the Chinese fan base. There is no Chinese fan base on Western social media sites. Like, the way you get fans in the West, the way that I would generate the most hype is if I was talking about, I tweeted out, wow, what a historic achievement by T1. They are like one of the best teams in the world. Faker's dominance, unmatched, the undisputed GOAT. Those are the tweets that get a lot of likes. The tweets that don't get a lot of likes are the ones where you're like, actually, I think the 20-0 team might lose to RNG. I mean, I know RNG had a bunch of bad games, but they're still pretty fucking good. Those are not the ones that prop you up in this community. The people that get to the top that are the most popular are the ones that are just going to be the most even keel about everything.
Honestly, if you would have taken that same tweet that you just said and swapped out like RNG and Yahoo for the Faker and T1, no, that would have been just as sufficient. Like people
Well,
would have been like,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm very sorry, Dom, because I was complicit in building this monster of Korean fan base in the West that is now attacking you. So I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I helped
No,
with
I actually like
that.
it pisses me off in a way, but and in another way, I kind of enjoy it because like I like that everyone tells me I'm delusional, and I like seeing the comments after like RNG ends up winning. Like that actually makes me feel good. I'm like, ha! Look at all the people that doubted. Like,
Oh my
look at all
God.
those people that doubted RNG. It actually is kind of like soothing. So it's not purely negative. Like there is, if there was no strife at all, I would probably enjoy it less. So
I
overall, keep
wish
doing what you're doing.
I wish we had timestamps in our comments, which obviously you can leave as well as subscribe to our channel here at Deserto Esports and support our show because we got a guy 2 days ago. So by the time this is posted, the finals were less than 2 days ago. Or more than 2 days ago. It said, so you guys want to retract that statement about T1 being overhyped? T1 gave G2 a humbling lesson. Like, again,
No, I
a
mean,
lack of
Guys,
understanding.
this is what we expected.
I said it would
don't-
be a not close 3-1. I should have probably said 3-0. I thought maybe G2 would like get a game. They might like cheese up because like the
I thought they
reason
would
why
win
I
a
said
game.
the reason why I thought that G2 could win a game was because G2 generally has really good prep for best of fives. If you think about their other best of fives that they played, they normally are able to like find strategic advantages based off how other teams draft. And I think Dylan's really smart at that. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt. They'll be able to come up with something to get a game. But like that was probably a little bit like yeah, that was probably a little bit too hopeful on my end. Like I
Western
probably should have
hopium.
yeah, I probably should have predicted T1 3-0, but I mean I had them winning. Like I had them winning. And it
I
definitely
will say
cancels itself out. Like I was a little bit too high on G2 in semis. I was a little bit too low on RNG in finals. Is what it is. Appropriate rating.
I will shout out just because we have called out a lot of the crap fans and fanatics that sense does not happen to them. But in that same chain, there is one guy fighting the fight for all of us. Nikolai 12000 said they literally said
I appreciate that
T1
guy.
with 3-1 or 3-0 G2, and they were the favorites to win the tournament. And he had to answer the question, are they not overhyped if they meet expectations? And it was like, what? That's the guy's argument. That was the delusional fans argument. So anyway, going back to T1 just a little bit.
No.
Oh,
Also,
go ahead.
like I have to say about expectations from people. Okay, the regions have been this way for a long time, guys. It's been very clear for the last decade that Korean and Chinese teams are basically on top when it comes to League of Legends. There have been a couple European exceptions to this rule. They are Moscow 5, and they are the good iteration of G2 in 2019. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
and
people will be
in
like,
2018, kind of.
yeah, and people will be like, "Oh, well, Fnatic, they went to the World Finals, over in 2018." Well, there's like a bazillion things we could talk about the context of that. First off, C9 pulled off one of the biggest upsets in League of Legends history by beating Africa Freaks, and it was the only time NA had ever made a semifinal, and then they got clapped by Fnatic in that semifinal. And then also, KT and IG, the two best teams in the world, met in the quarterfinals, and because Riot has dog shit formats, there wasn't double elimination, so they just got rolled, and then IG rolled through the rest of the tournament. So I think Fnatic was very lucky to get into those finals, and certainly they didn't do any, they got just shit on in those finals, whereas G2 was at least capable of winning international tournaments. So it's not really Europe, it's just G2, and it's actually just caps. It's actually just caps.
Just caps.
I mean, Perks did have a legendary performance in 2018 to get to semis where they like beat out RNG. Obviously, his LeBlanc game 5 was like absolutely absurd. So like, I mean, both of those teams, like, sure, Fnatic got one step further, but like G2 made a semifinal.
G2 had the obviously harder side of the bracket. Yeah.
Yeah. With Karnan and Wadid, they made a semifinal.
Yes. But this is all to say, guys, it's been a couple teams. It hasn't been regional strength, right? And it's been more specifically a couple of players a lot of the time. And those players are Perks and Caps. So seeing these teams and not getting overhyped by best of ones, seeing G2 and Evil Geniuses get dumpstered in the semis was not particularly shocking. And I just wish we could do away with some of these narratives about regional strength, because it's really just been team strength.
Individual team strength
mean,
from that region.
Yeah.
Compared to the regional strength of Korea and China.
Like, use your brains, guys. I know this is very difficult if you speak English and watch League of Legends for whatever reason. But for example, in Taiwan, like there were a few good Taiwanese teams, but it was mostly just Flash Wolves. It's not like we were saying Taiwan as a region was strong over the years. It was Flash Wolves are good, right?
Machi Esports, baby.
There was a good team. Just use your brain and think about Europe as Taiwan and just realize that there's like a good team and it's not necessarily a very strong region.
I mean, I think that the expectations for both EU and NA should be similar. I think that, like obviously MSI happened the way it happened. Quarterfinals should be probably expected. Like you should try to get a team into quarterfinals. If no one can get into quarterfinals from your region, that's probably sad. And then like if a team makes semis based off a good draw, that's like a stretch goal. Like that is and who knows, maybe we get double elimination finally at this World Championship. They were teasing it. We don't know.
Wait, they were when?
They said that they were considering double elimination.
Oh, they're not gonna. I mean, I can just straight up tell you that they're not going to do that, Dom, because they're still running all of the different things in different cities, so they have to move those events, and that's not going to be. They're not going to be able to do a double elimination bracket while moving massive events from stadium to stadium.
Yeah, well, who knows? I'm gonna be hopeful just so I can be disappointed and flame them if it doesn't happen. So, it is what it is. Look,
I can tell you that that's something that they did to placate the people who want that. But they are. I would be shocked if they did that this year.
It got to the point where the casters were even talking about it on social media, which is probably why they had to say something.
The point is that like EU and NNA, it's not like how the standards for G2 in 2019 and 2020 was like, can they win Worlds? Have to get to at least a semi. Probably like should be pretty happy with the final, but can they win it? Can they bring like a title to Europe? That was the feeling. Like I don't think that's realistic. Like I think most rational EU fans know that there's like no title this year like coming. You just have to be okay with essentially the rebuilding process of your region, because now all the top teams have essentially devolved and you have like these new players and top teams that have to like, yeah, they have to play these international tournaments. They have to get the experience, and we'll see what happens in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, let's just think midway through LEC split. You'd imagine G2 making it to MSI in the first place? No, they did everything through the lower bracket run. So, again, just kind of tempering expectations here. My one point I wanted to make about T1 was as that coaching shuffle happened, and Coach Danny and Zepha having the most coaching experience, moved on. They went and joined who? Damwon Kia with who's that? That's over there. Oh yeah, the longtime stalwart of T1, Coma. So again,
and now Nogari's back. The dream of a competitive Korea, where because like the thing about Gen G is they're just never going to beat T1 in their current form. Like this is Gen G. I'm sorry, buddy. Like, no, just no to Doran. Like, get out.
I hope Dom1 wins.
No to playoffs. No to playoffs. Peanut. Just no. Like the Gen G is a discombobulated roster that doesn't really emphasize their strengths in the way that they play. And as good as Chovy is in terms of laning and individual ability, he is quite bad at coordinating with the rest of a team, and that's going to preclude them from probably winning LCK unless they can fix that issue. So, which I don't think is fixable with the current roster, and they don't appear to be making roster changes. So maybe Damwon Gaming can save us from this. I hope so. I hope so.
As we close the chapter here, and we spent almost all the time here on the finals, as we should. Any closing thoughts here on our European counterparts, specifically as teams, both our G2 squad and then our North American counterpart in EG? A lot of talk about just, again, those 3-0s that happened that were a promising 3-0 for Evil Geniuses and like a slightly depressing 3-0 for G2. What were your thoughts on that? And we'll start with you, Monty.
So final thoughts on EG. I said it earlier. I like the fact that this team goes for the plays and tries to be creative when they're behind. I think that they've shown that they can play very well from behind and that they can execute kind of the mid and late game team fights to an acceptable international standard, but the hole is often too deep by the time that they reach that point. I'm hopeful that now that Jojo and Danny have had Korean boot camps, they have international experience. These were things that they were not able to get when during the pandemic, basically at the start of their professional League of Legends careers, that this will have a lasting impact. I think that they overperformed compared to my expectations. I expected them to do extremely badly at this event because they were very flawed as a team. And they had very obvious weaknesses that would be exploited by good teams that know how to snowball lane advantages. And that was still true, but they did show up in some of the late games, and they did make games competitive, at least in that stage of a game. So I think that as far as EG goes, there's nowhere to go but up, really, as their players get more experience. And I think this will be very, very valuable for them as a learning tool. And so I was pleased, I would say. On the side of G2, I didn't really understand. How can I phrase this? Things must have been going badly in scrims. And here's my interpretation of the way they played their semifinal. They won almost all of their games by playing through Caps when they had their strong start to the Rumble stage. Caps' individual performance was very good. So why do you start playing Caps on Galio and investing a ton of resources into the bottom side of the map? I assume that this means that Flacket and Targamas were doing very badly during scrims and that they were not capable of surviving laning phase or doing very well. And so they couldn't focus resources into Caps, which means that Caps had to play a more supportive role, and they thought that this was the best way to win their games. That's not a good thing, but Broken Blade's champion pool was really wacky this tournament, and it seemed like the meta has moved away from him. They were unable to find a different lane to play through effectively. So I think it's really hard to compete in a top 4 of an international event when Caps is really the only lane that you feel comfortable playing through. And when you try and play through other lanes, you still kind of get bodied. So it's disappointing, but I think there were kind of meta issues that held G2 back. And then once
just ban Ornn, like they just ban Ornn for some.
Well, yeah, they just ban Ornn because Broken Blade can't do anything else, and like they exhausted their supply of wacky Gwen counter picks, right? And Broken Blade just didn't seem comfortable on the Gwen itself, so I think kind of sucks for them in a way. Kind of sucks that this just didn't seem to suit them very well. But it was fun to watch them pull off the big upsets, and it was certainly fun to see Caps throughout the playoffs in this tournament return to like some of the peak Caps moments that make him a truly valuable and excellent player on an international stage. So there were positives there as well, but again, Flacket and Targamas are very new players, and I think again they will get a lot of value having been to this event now.
Yeah. I mean, just think about how they started this tournament so they started this tournament 12-0. And think about how they ended this tournament. Yeah. They lost 5, one versus EG, who they had their number the whole entire time, and then lost 3 more to T1. It's like they went from being like a team where people were like, damn, maybe this is one of the best teams in the world. Maybe they could win MSI again. To like, no, they're not even close. Like they got smacked by T1 so hard. So I don't know. I feel like it's good that G2 made it this far. I think that they if you look at the roster and you think about what they should have achieved at the beginning of LEC, you saw these 5 players together. I think they massively overachieved. They showed like a lot of good stuff. They shouldn't have won EU. They shouldn't have been.
This team dropped Mickey X for fucking Targamas. Like, what was that? Was a huge risk, right?
Yep.
And it did very well. I think jury's still out more or less on Flacket, but Flacket has overperformed expectations and definitely deserves more time with the accomplishments this roster has had. They haven't shown kind of big stage nerves, which is really good for rookie players. Yeah, so I think it's encouraging. And like Dom said, like nobody expected them to win Europe. That wasn't ever in the cards. Like nobody was like, yes, this team gonna be great. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
this
realistically,
this team's going to take the games off of RNG and T1.
Realistically, like you could play that T1 series like 100 times. I don't know how many of them they'd win.
They played really bad on the day. Well, I think they got sussed out, man.
I don't think it's even like that much that they played bad on the day. I feel like there's almost nothing they could do to beat T1 right now. Like they just
It was
have
a
to
it
get
was a
better.
horrible matchup. In the same way that I think EG was just a horrible, like EG probably would have done better versus T1 than they did versus RNG. Like that matchup RNG EG is just terrible for EG.
Well, I mean,
There's no perceivable strength that they have versus RNG.
and people were way too like hot. They're like, but EG kind of showed some life in game 3. You can definitely tell that RNG lost focus. Like, think about their energy coming into game 1. Like, they fucking destroyed them game 1. They just shit on them completely. And then
EG
like
got 1 kill and 1 dragon in game 1.
22-1 or 23-1 whatever.
I mean,
that
it was just
brutal.
just brutal. Like they the dive top, like it was just a clinic, you know.
It was an 18,000 gold victory.
I mean, that's a game though that I feel like you can learn so much from, because that's the problem is like when you watch the games that EG played against RNG, there's no way that an NA team could ever punish them even close to that hard. Like they'll never ever experience anything close to that within North America. That's why the international experience is so valuable. You think that they're gonna like burn a Gangplank flash level 1 in North America and snowball the entire game off of it? Like have the 3-man dive timer, like the things that they were doing were like Galo will take an even trade where they're just like trading sums, trading ults, because he knows that Xiaohu has like a slightly like earlier like 2-3 second move, and then suddenly like Danny's no sums under his turret, half-life, Galo's no sums like pushing the wave, half-life, and then 3 people just show up behind the turret and kill him. Like no, that's not gonna happen in NA, dude. Like that's actually really fucking good League of Legends. So I mean, that's why you need to go to these international tournaments to actually get the experience, because you'll never be able to, and it's so clear, you know, when you see those situations, you can learn so instantly, because like what happened to you was so calculated, and when you look at it, it's reproducible every single time by the enemy team. Like you know that it's like, oh, that wasn't an accident. It wasn't just the Galio showed up here. They knew about that shit. And then you start thinking, and then it opens your mind and you start thinking about it yourself. You're like, okay, like, can I trade like sums and like ult here? Like, do you have a timer? Okay, I'm gonna all in right now. And like, even though I know that neither of us can kill, we've got people on the way. Like we're gonna hit the timer and just like, you know, use this like couple second window. So yeah, I mean, I think that EG in general, like sure they had like a kind of close game 3. The way I see that is RNG kind of lost focus. I mean, they were smashing them. Like, I mean, they made like some plays in game 2, but they were pretty much in control of game 1 the entire time. Pretty much in control of game 2 the entire time. They had a big lead in game 3, and then they like inted a little bit, focused up. Like Gullah, you know, grew his hands back, and then they just won. So I don't even know how much to take away from that close game 3, because I don't think that like RNG is really gonna ever lose that series.
Well,
you know?
we also
Even
have to
if
be
they drop
honest
the game.
about the level of threat that it presented, because they were on Soul Point, and like they were able to get the Hextech Soul, and like as I alluded to at the start of the show, while EG did mount a comeback, it wasn't just a gold battle, it was like an objective stacking battle that they had already fallen behind on, and it's just not it has never been a reliable way, unless you are like 2015 SKT, to play for late game every game and then hope you're going to come back. It's the only team that's ever really done that. You have to have at least some early game presence, and you can't just get blown the fuck out every single early game and expect to win a best of 5. That's almost impossible to do in this game.
All right. Thank you for that, gents. I love that. We went everywhere again in this episode, talking fan bases, talking the game itself, talking the meta, talking about Polt. Sorry, Polt. But
Comments are going to be.
I like Polt.
Yeah.
Dom has no respect for his history.
Well, I mean, I literally don't even know his history at all. So like that doesn't matter. I've just seen him in League of Legends, and this is like one of the first interactions that I've seen him like publicly state something. And I just like completely disagree with ever saying that as like, even if you believe that to be true, I think you should never say that as a coach.
Yeah. As the coach.
Yeah. I think what's funny is like he is used to the nuances of professional play from an extremely long and decorated professional career himself. So clearly he knows that it can't be simplified to that degree.
Yeah.
And he's a champion, so like he doesn't have a loser's mentality of blaming it. He, you know, surely he must believe that there are things that they could have done in order to win this best of 5.
But then also, like, does this not say enough about the fan base that a lot of like, so when T1 fans started trying to rationalize this, one of the things they said is like, oh, he's trying to protect the players. It's one of like if you have to like go out and say something that you know is not true in order to try and save your players from getting flamed by your fan base, maybe there's an issue. That's all I'm saying.
It's okay. They never address their fans, so it won't matter.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I mean, they
with
won't
that
even
said,
address RNG. You know?
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow. True though.
well, with that said, we put an end finally to this tournament, MSI 2022, now in the history books with all of its surprises, all of its technical errors, and now even its vocal minority getting even louder in terms of it asking it to change for its next iteration. Hopefully, it'll be heard. We look towards the next regular seasons coming on up. LCS, LEC, and Korea all have announced that they will be starting in 2.5 weeks. So 2.5 weeks from this is done.
God.
So it's June 15th, June 16th, and June 17th. I think all the dates. I think Korea starts first.
LPL
Korea
starts on
first.
the 10th.
Is it the 10th?
Yep.
I looked somewhere. It said the 30th. I was like, are they waiting that long? Are they just going to cram the games? The 10th sounds
10th.
good. So that's
I don't even know if
gonna
that's,
be
if
in
that's
1
out
week.
yet. They told me though, because they had to confirm that I was still going to co-stream.
All right.
I decided. I
well,
said, look, you won MSI. I'll give you guys another chance. You know, like. No, I'm just kidding.
well, yeah, there you have
It's
it.
it's really generous of them to give you the chance to make money, Dom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look. I mean, from what I've heard, it's like the reason why I'm the way I am is because of all the China money that they're funneling into me. I definitely wouldn't, just co-stream and make money myself. They would have to pay me to do it on top. That's how much people think I'm worth. It's
Dom's just
flattering, really, but
rolling with fat stacks of RMBs right now.
yeah. Unfortunately, I guess I'll come out and say publicly they do not pay me to co-stream LPL, nor to have any opinions. Like I actually just watch
Enjoy
the game and yeah, and I enjoy it. And
you,
also like
you pay Dom fans.
I
That's what
can't
you
wait.
do.
I can't wait for our comment section to only hear the first part of what you just said. And they're going to be like, yeah, he's only a fan because he said himself that they pay him a ton. All right. Well,
It is what it is.
we have the whole second half, the world's half of League of Legends coming on up in just a little bit. So just a couple more weeks. So we'll take a look at the schedule, see if we have another episode, if we're going to do another episode next week before all the tournaments.
Yeah, probably be 2 weeks, I would say, because that's going to be before that's going to be when many of the major regions are starting. So
yeah, 12-10, the new patch that has come on.
I am very excited about that. We haven't even talked about that, but that's going to be great. I'm super psyched to see professional play on this patch.
Yeah, we'll see.
Again,
I don't have too many
more
hopes
durability, right? That's the big part of it.
I don't like the change that much. I mean, I just literally think that the assassin class is like no longer in the game.
It's all right.
I mean,
Yeah, I saw your tweet.
done.
It's all right. We're going back to the macro tank dream.
I don't even think the tanks got that much better for this.
No, the 80 carries are.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like in general we're gonna see similar metas. I mean, just like certain champions just got a lot better. Like anyone that has percentage damage. Like I mean, Kindred is so much better in the jungle. Like those types of picks. I feel like got the real like buffs. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like when an entire class just feels never worth it to play. And I think that's kind of the way it seems right now with assassins. But yeah, we can get into that later.
All right,
we'll see. They might also hotfix it or change things. Like with such a massive patch, they're already going to be hotfixing a bunch of stuff. So I imagine we'll probably see some pretty dramatic changes in the future. So I'm holding off on that just because there is no way that they can know how this is going to play out once it escapes into the wild like this. So it'll be interesting to see the changes that they make. But I think it's a positive direction for the game overall.
Yeah, I think ERLs, like Proving Grounds, what else? Collegiate is going to be coming up here in a couple, like in next week. So there'll be some little tidbits, but the changes won't happen probably fast enough. And when they do happen, we'll be there to cover it here on the jungle at Deserto for everybody. Appreciate y'all watching. Again, like, subscribe, help us. We are just 100 away from Astralis. I appreciated the one guy, the 30 subscriber Andy, saying, you guys don't make enough content. That's why I don't subscribe. Here's free Elo for you. Like I was like, okay, cool. Thanks, my guy.
Are we doing God or Dog or what's happening here?
Oh yeah, my bad. I forgot. Let's God or Dog. Let's close it out here with God or Dog. All right. since you brought it up, go ahead, Tom.
Gumayushi.
Who's your-
That's my dog.
Okay, dog. Yeah, I was gonna go dog first.
There it is.
Really?
Dog first.
So
Yeah,
I love Polt, but I thought you might pick Polt because he was behaving like a,
I thought
like
it
a
was
bitch
limited to
after he
players.
lost. He was a bitch after he
Okay.
lost, dude.
All right.
I love
Wait,
you,
how
Polt,
come-
but that was a bitch move.
Wait, how come like I'm the one that's going hard the whole time, and then you're just gonna call him a bitch at the end of everything? Like, Jesus. Like, I'm the one that's like, yeah, I think that it was like disgusting.
Look,
and then
man.
you're like, I respect him so much. He's a fucking bitch. Like, what?
I love him.
Like,
No, I didn't
How
say
did
he was a bitch. I said that was a
being
bitch
a bitch.
move.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's
there's different. I think that was very un-Polt-like in my experience.
try that one on your wife and then see how she responds. No, I said you were being a
Oh.
bitch. I didn't call you a bitch. I just want to see how that works out for you, Monty.
That is actually hilariously something I might say. So,
All right.
All right. That's
you just have to
a
understand
good
how it is
insight.
how it is to interact with me. There isn't a difference in treatment no matter who you are. That's the MonteCristo way. That's why it's crazy that people spend time with me. Anyway.
Wow. That sounds rough.
We went deep in the MonteCristo tunnel.
Hey man, I've come to peace with myself. That's all I need in this world. It's fine.
all right.
Is
Well,
that gonna be like the first thing? Wait, I don't know how old your kid is, but like when your kid can actually like have memories of a conversation, is this gonna be like the first thing you tell? By the way, you get no preferential treatment just because you're my kid. By the way, like I'll treat you just like everyone else.
also go Broncos.
Yep. Yep. Basically,
Wow. All right, Monty. Okay. Well,
it's a harsh world out there. You know.
Now that we've seen Monty's
gotta get him
piece,
ready.
Monty, who's your dog in your?
I said already it was Polt.
Oh, it was Polt. Okay, okay. So sure.
I like I said, I disagree with what Polt said and the characterization of it, and I think that somebody with his experience shouldn't oversimplify things like that. I think it's lame of him to imply that or try and take away the victory of RNG. So just don't do that. I know you're better than that, Polt. I know you're better than that.
I think for me, it's weird because I feel like I've given him God before too. Jankos got worked. He got worked hard. I felt like in that series in the 3-0, and so I think Jankos is my dog for this, I guess, semifinal knockout stage. Could have gone someone with on EG, but I think it was Jankos surprisingly. Who is your God, Monty? Who do you have?
I would say like I really like Xiaohu throughout the finals. Like I think he played really well. He looked comfortable in the picks that he has. He's a very unselfish player. Like he and Faker are I think quite similar in terms of their play style right now, being low economy mid laners that generally get a lot of value over the gold that they're given, and then kind of spread that influence to the rest of the map. So I think I really enjoyed seeing Xiaohu play in these finals.
Yeah, for me, I'll have Wei. I think Wei obviously had a really tough matchup into Owner. Yeah, and I think just Wei was just
dude.
so
I
good.
actually like low key loved the level 3 Viego invade. That is like some solo queue cheese right there, and I love him having the balls to go for that kind of play in a high stakes match like that. It's fun.
Yeah,
Really
and
fun to watch.
Owner just got outplayed on it, right? Like Owner was hitting the buff, and then he ended up like using his smite on the buff, but like it ended up resetting, so he miscalculated it. And then Faker moved too, but like it's a cleanse Ari. It's not an ignite Ari, so you're not that scared of this Ari. I mean, people were saying, "Oh, Faker missed the ping or missed the charm because it was 35 ping." Wei had flash. Like Wei would just flash the charm if it was gonna hit, and then they would just like scrap it out. And even if the charm hits, Wei's not just insta dead or anything. Like it's a no red buff Wukong. It is a cleanse Ari, like we said. So, yeah, I think Wei was just really fucking good in this series overall. Yeah, I just thought he just played better. He was like the fact that they're giving over the most OP jungler on the patch, the perceived most OP jungler on the patch, which is obviously Wukong, and Wei's just playing against it with Viego, Lee Sin, just getting the upper hand in those matchups.
And then he draws Viego bans eventually.
Yep. I thought it was really good.
Yep.
Mine was Yahoo as well for all the points that you made there, Monty. And then again, we've had role swaps of players before, But to go and do it at the highest level and go win 2 international tournaments is pretty great. And for as long as Yahoo has been doing it. And remember, this was Uzi's team, not Yahoo's team, and now this is very clearly Yahoo's team, and he's cemented some history here for RNG and for Chinese League of Legends and League of Legends in general. I think that's awesome. So yeah,
You know what's
there
not
you have it.
awesome? Just to throw that out there. How crazy is it that they documented every single LPL versus LCK best of 5 in international tournaments on Reddit? There's only been 19 best of 5s between LPL and LCK.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like we're in season 12, dude. How is that possible? That seemed completely unreal when I heard that stat or when I saw it on Reddit. Like I was like, God damn. LPL is actually 10-9 now. So that was the context, is that Koreans pretty much dominated up until 2017. And then afterwards, LPL has been pretty much equally as dominant. I mean, obviously they didn't win everything the same way Korea did, but it's been very LPL favored.
Yeah,
I don't know this
also,
one.
it is worth noting though that a lot of those LPL LCK matches have been like very close 3-2s, right? So it's you have to look at the kind of the context of the individual matches as well. The results have been very LPL favored, but a lot of the individual matches were really tight.
That's what we talked about earlier, right? Like LPL it feels like they're just way less scared in those deciding games than LCK is. Like if you just look at consistently, right? We've seen 3 of them now, right? We saw RNG versus Dom1 and MSI, and just every single time it gets to the game 5, it feels like, I mean, it's what Monty said, right? It's Trundle for Canyon, it's Carry on Yumi. It's always this like,
it's so depressing, actually.
yeah. But I mean, I like seeing that the LPL players compete. I think that's something that in general League of Legends will eventually need to catch up on. It's part of the reason why I like pro sports so much, is these guys that are in their 30s that have been competing their entire lives, they're just better competitors than kids that are 18. Like who would have thought? I know, crazy concept, but yeah.
You made me pull this one up, so I will not take credit as dGon's fact of the week, sponsored by no one. But I was just wondering, in that context of best of 5s, what was the first best of 5 that China beat Korea? I just looked it up.
Would it be like OMG versus
2015 MSI finals?
No, there was OMG versus Najin Whitesword.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That was a quarterfinal at the Korean World Championship in 2014. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah. No, I remember those.
I thought it was the MSI one.
I was really like that original OMG team. I thought that was with like what Cool and Gagoin.
Yeah. That was actually a fun series. That was a blowout too. Although I will say about that particular matchup that Najin Whiteshield didn't. Okay, technically they won the gauntlet, like to be at Worlds, so you can say they deserved it. But that was Watch, who spent his entire career kind of sucking, having like one miracle run, and like they were not the 3rd best team in Korea in 2014. They had like this crazy run in the gauntlet, and so that I guess I didn't recall that particular one because they were like. They shouldn't have been at that Worlds, if we're being honest.
So what Monty is saying, for those that remember the video I did at the beginning of this year, was that he thinks that Hachani was actually the savior of Korea. He wanted to see KTA.
I did not want to see KTA.
The winners
I hated them too.
I hated
them too. That was bullshit.
Wow.
They were the worst team to ever win a title under OGN. They were another Giga Lucky team, and no, I did not want to see them at Worlds.
Who did you actually want to see then? Because I thought that was the team you were going to say, because they're obviously the team that won Summer. Like who did you want to see?
This is a really good point. I'm looking right now. Who else it could have been?
I mean, I think I would have rather have seen KT Bullets that year at Worlds.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, so it's Limit, Prime, Nagne, Score, and Destiny. I don't know Limit and Prime.
I guess by the time that rolled around, like the summer finals, I think I probably would have rather seen, frankly, SKTS. I think I probably would have rather seen SKTS.
Was that with what was his name? Horo? What was his name?
Yeah, Horo was the jungler. It was Easy Hoon, Marin, Bang, and Wolf's team at the time, and they were really boring. But I think they were a better roster. By the time Worlds rolled around, I think that was a better roster.
Wow, I
Dang.
went to SKTS, and the first thing I see is MonteCristo in the first sentence.
What?
SK Telecom T1 was given the nickname Terminator by Doa and MonteCristo to differentiate the team from their sister team, SK Telecom T1K, which they nicknamed Judgment Day.
Yeah, because it was T1 and
Terminator
T1 too.
Judgment Day.
Look, the names were
Like
fucking horrible. The names were fucking horrible. They literally called their teams SKT11 and SKT12. We had to figure out a better name for them than that because it was just uncastable, right?
Okay.
Oh
So
man,
Terminator.
Well, because it's T1 and T2.
All right. I like it.
Terminator and Judgment Day after the Terminator movies because it was a quicker and easier and more memorable way to refer to them.
Just looking at these teams, Incredible Miracle 1, Smeb Smurf.
I was actually good friends with one of the players on Incredible Miracle 1. Mid King. Mid King was like
oh yeah, the OG.
So a lot of so there used to be used to know a lot of the Korean players if you played on NA high yellow back in like season 1, season 2 because they didn't have a server, so they literally played on NA. So I became good friends with Mid King, and when I went to Korea to play in Champions, or OGN, I think it was called Champions. I don't know.
It was called Champions. Yeah.
Yeah. When I went to play in Champions, I actually duoed with Mid King. He had a rank 1 and a rank 2 account, and I duoed with him on his rank 2 account, and we got rank 2 and rank 14. So he was always the homie. This guy ran fucking Korean solo queue. He was the best Korean solo queue player by far at that point. I guess until Faker came around, which I wasn't there for. Beast player.
I'm just looking at this summer season rosters. This is fun. Jin Stealth, Fly, Captain Jack, Trace, Chaser, Jenner Falcons, Pilot, GBM. Big File Miracle had Core JJ and Huhi on it. Oh man, this is good times. Okay. With all that said, though, there's your God or Dog. That is your episode of The Jungle covering MSI and more. We will be back in two-ish weeks to start breaking down the march towards Worlds in the summer splits of your major regions, and of course any of the big news and big upsets that happen across the world. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Certo for making this happen, and then we'll catch you guys for next episode as we kick off the summer split. See ya.